Welcome to Her Second Stage, the podcast dedicated to inspiring successful women in the next stage of their lives. I'm Hilda Landerstedt, and I'm excited to share the lessons I've learned as I transitioned into my second stage. Join me on this exciting journey of sisterhood and remembering who we are at our core. Remember, no matter where you've been, the best is yet to come. Archetypes, the resource within every woman. And this is what I want to talk about today. And I have my dear friend Desiree, also known as the Redhead here, who is an expert in the topic of archetypes. And welcome, Desiree. Thank you for joining me today. I'm so happy to have you in Austin today.
No, it's beautiful to be here. And excuse me, I'm so happy to have this conversation. It's something I love to talk about. So
I know we've been having so many conversations about it. And every time I speak to you, I learn something more and I learn how to resource myself with the archetypes. And how did you get into the topic of archetypes? I know I was so in my masculine and working and in a masculine world and in a male-dominated boardrooms and decision-making. I didn't even realize how far away from being in my feminine I was until we started doing our own personal work where we met. Yeah. How did you get into the archetypes? And tell us more. What are? I mean, the topic is so big.
It's so big.
One of the other questions I have, I'm going to leave you and then I'm going to give it over to you, is that you see on social media where people say we choose an archetype. Mm-hmm. And I know you have a very different view on that. You're not one, but you're all. Mm-hmm. So just tell me your story. How did you get into archetypes and to the journey where you are now?
Definitely. Thank you. Thank you so much. Definitely not a straight line or like a linear path. Like most journeys, it's curving, and I went through a lot of twists and turns. But I would say the biggest thing for me is I was born into a very religious family, and we were very much separated. Our community, our religion was not part of the world. So I was raised in a very sheltered, very strict, very singular focused environment with a beautiful family and a beautiful community. So, it wasn't this horrible thing. But when I finally decided to leave that, I didn't leave until I was in my late 20s. And as you can imagine, with any sort of very closed religious system, there was a lot of repression and oppression of what is right and what is wrong. And from the feminine perspective, what is that? Being subservient and having this certain energy versus, what the head of the house or the man gets to do. And so there was a lot of conditioning that I just knew that was not in alignment with who I was. So what was beautiful is that when I left that, I was really very open and curious, like, who am I? Who am I in this world? At that point, I had already started my career. I was successful in tech, but I would notice, because again, I worked with mostly men, I would notice how I would have an impulse. I would just, like an intuition, I would know how to close that deal. I would know that this opportunity was coming. And yet I wouldn't know how to explain that. So then I would go searching for all the data to prove my point. And that's how I would present it. I would spend so much energy finding all of the concrete information to justify why I had that thought or opinion or what have you. And so I started noticing that this pattern, that my impulse was always on, but wow, I would spend a lot of energy getting to the answer for other people or for what I thought they wanted. So all of this was kind of culminating in my late 20s. And when I left the religion, I finally had some freedom to ask that question, who am I? And I didn't have the resources of diving into necessarily different therapies. I started with character. I've always loved books. I've always loved myth. I've always loved stories. And so my pathway in was actually, now that I was liberated and I wasn't under the rules of the religion, who did I get to be sexually? Who did I get to be as a woman? And who did I learn from? Because clearly these energies were not modeled for me. So by going into story, by going into myth, I naturally found myself dancing with these feminine archetypes. Who is the queen? Who's the temptress? What energy does a mother bring when you don't have children? You know, and I got to start to like put on the outfit and kind of dance like, oh, when I put her on, what does that light up in me? And it was like an organic journey of discovering who I was through these different characters. And that has been over the last, over a decade of me dancing with these different parts of myself and realizing, wow, how much enlivenment, how much energy I get when I open up when I get curious about these parts of myself, when I open up to them.
I mean, you grew up in a house full of women.
Yeah.
So it was just kind of naturally that everyone was
a different energy.
Energy.
I have 3 sisters and a mom and big personality and lots of aunties. And so it was like I got to see all these different energies of the feminine. And when I was young, it was like, oh, who am I? Well, I'm not the artist because we already have an artist in the family. I'm not this one. I'm not that one. And I realized without thinking, I started pinching myself off from a very early age. Like I said, oh, I'm not the creative one. That's my sister. She's amazingly creative. So, okay, but I could be, intelligent. I could fill that role in the family. We don't, I could be the brainiac or whatever it was. And again, that took me after to unwind those to be like, well, wait, what part of me is creative? What part of me is the artist? And when I give myself permission to be her, what comes to life for me?
I know you said there's 12 archetypes when we have our conversations, and how can we be all 12? Like, this sounds a little bit much for women to have 12 different archetypes all within reach. Tell me about that.
Yeah.
Tell me, what's the benefit? How do we use them to resource, and even go into the discussion around what each archetype is and when we will call her in?
Absolutely. So, I didn't come up with the archetypes. This has been in, we've had archetypes since the beginning of time, carvings on walls, in myth, in story. There's these strong energies, masculine and feminine, that have stood the test of time. I have a type of mind that I need some sort of a framework to be like, what am I dealing with? I don't like things. I like to have a breadth and depth, but I also like a little structure. So for me, as I would find an energy like the queen or the mother, an archetype, I started putting them, like categorizing them. And so for me, I came up with a model that really helped me understand, like, how can all 12 live inside of me? So I'll break it down from the basic perspective. I use 12 because I also believe in the moon cycle and the zodiac and celestial energies. So they kind of map together for me, in my experience, really beautifully. How can I use the energy of the sun and the moon and these abstract energetics to also support my own expansion, my own curiosity, my own knowing of myself? So it naturally fell into 12. And then when I looked at it, it was like, okay, there's the archetypes that help us connect, that they really help us live into the sentence, I connect, the maiden, the temptress, the healer. Then there's the ones that we create with, the mother, birthing life, the queen, having responsibility for a kingdom, the creatrix, the muse, the artist that creates for, the collective. And then there's ones that come to awaken us. These are the ones most people are most intimidated by, the wild woman, the warrioress, the sorceress. They come to wake us up. They have something that usually is really back there, really hidden, that wants to come to life, that wants to be known, and they come with an intensity about them. And then the ones that help us transcend, the explorer, the wise woman, the priestess, the ones that really take us up and out, that, how are we connected with the benevolence of all life? And so for me, by having that framework, I never attached to the philosophy that, like, oh, in this period of my life, I'm a maiden, and then I graduate to this, and then I'm not. And it just felt so limiting. Like, I don't want to, once I'm, the crone, I'm the crone. I mean, not that she's not wonderful, but I'm a diverse being. I have a lot of life force. I want to play with all of it. And so for me, what really landed was that, okay, no, these are all energies that live inside of me. And I consider them like I'm the sovereign in the center. and I could call on any of these energies to embolden me, to enliven me. So let's say I'm negotiating something. I run a company, you know, I have employees and what have you. So I need to call on my queen, my diplomat. I need to have an authority and an understanding of, okay, there's a direction we need to go. And how do I do that with the utmost care to everything that's around me? And in that, I need to pull in my creatrix because we need to get a little creative in this deal. There's some tension. We need to, you know, find creative ways to work around it. And I might need to pull in my warrior, I need a backbone for this. I need to really stand and know this is what we need in order to make this deal succeed. So in that sense, it was like I could play with the energies, and at any time, once I knew who they were, and this is the journey, right? It's one thing to know them mentally and to tell a story, and we could all conjure up a vision of an archetype, you know, the warrioress, even the wild woman. Oh, most of us are like, oh my God, she's scary. But we could conjure up these images. But what I found is that until I had a practice of actually bringing her into my body, of actually knowing what my wild woman felt like inside, what my sorceress, how she moved my body when I felt her, then suddenly this went from a knowing to a way of being. And that's how I began to learn to dance with them and give myself a lot more range, a lot more freedom, a lot more capacity, that now I feel like I could walk into any room and I could feel what sort of energy will either open the conversation or will give me the most life force or will allow me to feel the most free. And I know how to call on those archetypes to really expand, my own authenticity, my own way of being.
That's amazing. But like how? Like, yeah, we have people that maybe knows about it, have read about it, never have heard about it. Where do we start? Like, where does a woman go to start to learn? Or is it just reading and practicing? Or what advice can you give women that curious?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, and I started with reading and studying and what have you. I have now created programs because I love the work so much. I loved the journey that I've been on. So I now work and support other women in meeting these parts of themselves. But it starts with just being curious. For one of my programs, you know, we go through one archetype a month. So this month we're dancing with the creatrix energy. So first, even just feeling that, like a creatrix, an artist, a muse, when you even hear those phrases, is there a part of you that lights up? Is there a part of you that's resistant? Oh no, that's not me. I'm not creative. I'm not artistic. We'll have a natural, if we just give ourselves a little pause, we will feel something come to life in our body.
Yeah.
And so then you just get curious, where does that live? And you, whatever path, if it's the resistance, where am I feeling contracted? And can I take a breath into that part of myself? The creatrix, she brings artfulness into any moment. She's so attuned to life because she's had so much experience that she understands, okay, what will actually open this moment? What will bring more life into this? And so she's really attuned and she's listening and responding all the time. So then we kind of bring that into our own body. Where am I pinched off from listening? Or where am I naturally artful? Maybe it's the way I set a plate for dinner, or my creativity in cooking, or the way I decorate a room, or my ability to stylize my outfit. We all have her somewhere. And so we find where she is, and then we build upon that place. And in doing that, we learn where we've repressed her. And it's just a dance. It's a very open, curious dance of seeing where that energy lives within us, and then really seeing what more does she want to express? And can I invite her in a little bit more? In whether that's in the privacy of my own home, by bringing more artfulness and creativity. Maybe that's into my relationships. Can I be more creative? Can I pull more juice out of this dynamic? Maybe that's erotically in our sexuality and being more expansive with our ways of being. It could show up anywhere, and she's welcome anywhere. It's really, we are the ones that have put limits on where she could play.
Why do you think that is? Why do we suppress certain aspects or limit ourselves
Yeah.
and not allow the fullness of all of the archetypes to come through?
Yeah, I think it's completely understandable why we don't. We all grow up with energies and modeled to us, from our family of origin, in our community, in our how we were raised, our culture. There are things that from a very young age were acceptable and not acceptable. Even if no one was saying those exact words, we can feel energy of when, we're uncomfortable. That someone's uncomfortable. Maybe it's our parents. We're uncomfortable with a certain display of energy that was not natural in our household, or it was not accepted by our religion. And so suddenly we're so adaptable. And so we start to, okay, that's not acceptable. So I'm going to lean a little bit like this. And then this one's over here and we contort ourselves and we pinch ourselves off. Or even in my family, it was my belief system that said, we already have a creative. That role's taken. Right. Got to find something else. No one in my family sat me down and said, you are not a creative. But I came up with that. And so it's a natural thing that happens in life. And some people have more traumatic experience where it's like, no, this is absolutely not allowed. Sometimes it's as we grow, like the first, as we're in our adolescence and teenage years or even young adult, and we feel rejection. We say something to a group of friends and we get met with a very, not the response we wanted. And something in us freezes and pulls back and locks. There's not a person that's not experienced this. But the gift is that if we take ourselves into our own hands and we open up and we start to be curious about who am I really? If I started to unwind some of these knots, what do I have available to me? I look at it as resources. Like I have a lot more range. I have a lot more resources. I have a lot more options than just responding in this one way. And that's where the juice of it comes. That's where the life force comes. Because I think as we start to unravel some of this conditioning, we start to see the parts of ourselves that just naturally come to life. It's like when they asked Michelangelo about carving the statue of David, he said, I didn't carve David. I just chipped away everything that wasn't him. Yeah. And when we do that to ourselves, it's like, whoa, there's so much. Wow, I didn't even know that part was there. Or, this. So it's really beautiful.
Our audience in her second stage are successful women later in life with dealing with a lot of change, hormonal changes, family situations where kids might be leaving, empty nesting, often relationship status changes, divorce, or even not divorce. Relationships need to be redefined because suddenly after 20 years, the kids are gone. I want to talk about the archetypes for our women entering or planning or are already in our second stage, because I think we all been thinking about the mother, we're all relating to the mother as the archetype and forgetting that we still have the maiden and still have all of these others. And we potentially are really lost because we're not the mother of children anymore. Mm-hmm. And some of us, the business becomes the little baby. So what I want to understand, or what I want to talk to you, is how do women in the later stage of life resource themselves with the 12 archetypes, and when do you call in? And then it's a long question. I'm sorry.
I love it.
I love it. It's also, a lot of my episodes that I'm talking about is about the shadow side, the shadow side of the feminine. And I want to bring that into this conversation as well, so that we can recognize when we're not showing up in the healthy, healed version of that archetype. I was in your conversation about the creatrix and you were mentioning her shadow. And I'm like, oh my God, I have that character. I need to work on that aspect. But if I didn't even know it. So back to you. Back to you, and talk us for older women.
Yes.
And how to, what we need to know to resource ourselves for the next 50 years of our lives.
I love it. Thank you. Thank you for asking such a deep, juicy question, because I think we can get kind of caught up in the fantasy of who they are. But the reality is there's shadow sides of that. There's what happens when that's repressed. And then the most beautiful part of the question is, how is it practical, right? Like, again, how do we take this and really utilize it to have more life force, to have more of ourself expressed? And I think it applies to women of every age, but especially when we have really taken on, to your point, the role of mother, the role of, CEO, the role of wife, all these different roles where we have potentially felt compressed, that this is my identity. And then suddenly circumstances are changing and we're like looking around like, well, who am I now? And who am I now that my body is different and my energy level is different and I'm experiencing life differently. And that's where I think it's more important than ever to understand the internal resources, the spring of resources that we have inside of ourselves. So you mentioned the mother, and I think the mother is such a beautiful archetype, and it's Mother Mary, Mother Teresa, the 1950s housewife with the cute little apron doing all the things for the kids. I am a mother, so I think I'm a single mom, running a business, having a little boy. We have so many different views, but we all have a vision of the right kind of mother, right? That's the
right.
There's this, this, maybe it's saintly, maybe she makes the best dinners, I don't know. What I love about when you really go into the mother archetype, the mother is so rich because, first of all, she's bringing a creation to life. It's coming through her being, whether that's a physical child, a being, whether that's an idea, a business. The mother energy is not bound to just having children, but it is birthing life force through you. And what's beautiful about the mother is that she is so devoted to allowing that to live, right? To raising it up. Again, whether that's a child or a business, she is caring. She is putting her life force into to ensure that that life will go on. What I don't think people realize is that the mother lives with a deep heartache, deep heart wound, because she knows that life force will move beyond her. So here she is devoting everything, her love, her desire for that to grow and succeed, knowing that one day, even if it's a business, even if it's a product, it's going to go beyond her. And there's like an ache of that. And just like when our babies go to kindergarten or go to college or have these experiences, it's like, that is my heart. I have so much love and devotion and life in that. And I think we don't talk about that very much. We don't have empathy and such tenderness for that part of a woman, her willingness to be so devotional. Another thing about the mother, on the opposite kind of end of that, is that look at in the animal kingdom. What is the most dangerous animal to come upon? A mother. Rage lives in the mother. She is protective. She will fight to the death. She will lift a car. Think about the adrenaline, the things, the heroics mothers have done. That they're driven out of the norm, out of what would be considered normal, because of their devotion and love and protection of what is theirs. And so in the mother, we get to dance with these, with the extremity of rage, the depth of devotion. And again, like, that's a lot of range that we don't normally talk about when we think of the mother. And so, again, I'm kind of going a little bit deep into her, but I think she's such an important archetype, because when we consider ourselves, this is who I am, and then our children go on to become adults and they're moving on, there's like a gap. Who am I without raising and tending to this child? But we could utilize the mother in so many different, she's the nurturing part of us. Even erotically, she's the one that knows how to receive nourishment and nourish our lover with tenderness and with care and with attention to detail and attuned to the needs of others. And we can see that that's so beautiful and yet could also have a shadow side when we're so attuned to the needs of others that we're not filling up our own cup and we're running on fumes. Then what happens? We get resentful. We get where, we want it to be reciprocated.
Yeah.
So that we just started with the mother, and you can see how much depth is in her. And so the process that I go through is first understanding her mentally, understanding the details of her, but then how do we bring her into our body? Where have I really allowed myself to live into that energy? Where do I trust that part of myself? Or where do I see some of the shadow, where I have resentment, where I feel burnt out, where I feel exhausted? Even this being or this business that I love, I'm kind of feeling dragged down by it. So how do I then tend to those parts of myself so that I can maintain a level of devotion, a level of life force where it's not draining me, it's actually enlivening me?
Do you use any of the other archetypes to then resource her, or does she just stay in her? Do you need to resource her from her archetype?
No, it's like ingredients. We could use as many of the spices, as many of the archetypes as we want, and they're definitely coming in. They're very helpful. The warrior coming in to support the mother, or the temptress. I play with the temptress all the time with my little boy. How do I tempt him to clean his room, make a game out of it? How do I tempt him to eat his vegetables? How do I play with him, make a game out of doing the things we need to do in order to get where we need to go, right? Okay. So I resource my mother with all of the different archetypes. Okay. But I think it's important to start by really knowing her. And that's why I like to take, a month. Who is she showing up as in my work environment? Who is she showing up as in my relationships? Am I mothering myself? A big part of the mother is turning that attention inward and saying, am I giving myself the care and the nourishment I need so that I could then support others in a way that I desire? We really have to look at her from all angles and invite her in and be able to hold the parts of ourselves where we might not be living into our full expression of her. And not with judgment or blame, but with compassion. To say, oh, I can see where I've pinched that part of me off. And can I just soften a little bit into that? And can I get curious if I invited more of that energy, if I turned that light on myself and I nourished some of these parts that are feeling in lack? I gave her motherly love and attention. Who do I show up as in the next moment? What resources do I have? And that's where dancing with them and understanding them, not out of blame or we should be this or shouldn't be that, but in a way where we embrace and hold ourselves. And the more capacity we have to do that, we have so much more capacity to engage with people, holding ourselves a little bit with a little more grace and a little more kindness.
Take me and discuss the ones we have most resistance to.
Yeah.
Like the ones that are like, ooh.
Yeah. I love these are my favorite.
And so that we can understand how we can resource ourselves, even if we really feel through conditioning or whatever that we have shrinking or conditioning against those archetypes. And I think the sorceress is the one most women.
Yeah. Sorceress, wild woman, temptress.
Yeah.
I mean, even just think of when I say temptress. Where does that land in your body? What do we
like? Whoa.
Yeah, exactly. Woof. That's, we conjure in our mind an image of a temptress. And when we dance with the temptress, what the temptress comes to teach us is the temptress longs to be pressed up against life. She longs to connect at the deepest, most visceral level. And yes, that absolutely includes sexuality, but it is not bound to that. She is the part of us that wants to just feel our lover or what we love in our body, to ignite our passion, to ignite our intensity for life. And she's beautiful because when we dance with her, what we learn is that the Temptress is not in the future and she's not contemplating the past. She came to teach us presence, to be right here in this moment, to soak every bit of life and juice out of this moment, because right here is where I am. And so when we expand our mind to start to think of the gifts that she brings us, and then play with the fact of like, okay, if I think of a temptress as, someone who's seducing, or is there malice in her energy, or something I need to fear, then we go inside of that part of ourselves and say, where does that fear live? Where did I learn that? Like, what was the first image of a temptress that comes to mind? And we just start gently playing and learning these parts of ourselves where this conditioning or beliefs came in, and ultimately how they pinched off that energy source that she gives us. You can be celibate and have a completely enlivened temptress because it's not bound to sexuality. There's an erotic creature in every archetype. That's what's so fun. It doesn't just live in one. But her gift is like, how present are you in a conversation? How present are you when you're sitting in nature or even in traffic? And do you allow yourself to look at a beautiful sunset and just allow your body to be enlivened by that sheer display of beauty? That's what the temptress is like, leans in for more. Well, that felt so good. Can I have a little more? And that's what she brings us.
And the others? Are they
others? Yeah. Okay, sorry. I go down on one, into a rabbit hole on one, and I'm just like fell in love with her. I'm in love with all of them. The sorceress. So the sorceress is very, very beautiful. So she's the part of us that can reconnects us with our magic. And think about it, when I say sorceress, you'll naturally feel maybe the term witch will come in. Maybe you'll think of like a snarly woman over a cauldron making some potions to do something, some evil deed. Or maybe you'll think of like a powerful woman with a crystal ball. Whoever comes up for you, go into that. Because again, it'll show where the conditioning is. Is that something that excites you? Oh, magic, power. How well do I dance with my own power? How empowered am I? Do I look at power as something to power over? Or am I turned on from the inside? I am fully empowered to walk into any room and hold myself and dance with whatever energy is there for me. I've really had to dance with the sorceress, and I go deeper with her every time, because one of the things that really came to me is that the sorceress knows what it means to be both desired and feared. And she is the one that takes us into the depths of ourselves. She's not for the surface layer. She says, if we're walking down into those deeper parts, dancing with power, dancing with fear, dancing with magic. What magic have I pinched myself off from because I couldn't explain it, or because I didn't think people would understand? So she really empowers us to hold that energy, to attune ourselves back with nature, to dance with the wisdom that's naturally inside of us, and to dance with power and reprogram, re-understand power dynamics. So she's very powerful. I love her. And then the last one I'll talk about, the wild woman, because this one's so fun, because when I even just say wild woman, what do you think of? A feral woman in the woods, naked or loud or untamed. And what I love about the wild woman is that she really invites us to be authentic in our emotion. She feels everything, and she's not afraid to express it. She allows herself to feel the depths of grief and unbridled joy. And do we allow ourselves that range?
Yeah.
Do we allow ourselves to be so happy and show that joy and not close it off or pinch it down because we don't want to be too much? No, she is the full expression of life. She feels everything, and she is untamed, and she stands before us naked, and she says, don't look away. Don't look away when I'm crying. Don't look away when I'm so mad. And I could really get emotional with her because she's inviting us to feel our feelings. But when we know we can hold them and we know every feeling we have, there is a sacred beauty in that, and we allow ourselves, wow, do we have so much more compassion for others? Can we sit with someone in the depths of their grief and just feel with them?
That's beautiful. And I've really connected with the wild woman, all the feelings and the connecting with nature and authenticity. So thank you for sharing that with us.
Yeah.
Now I understand why we are so resistant against those three archetypes, but there's so much beauty in them for every woman to really leaning in and embracing. Tell us about the program and where people can get hold of you if they want to join your program.
I love it. Thank you. Yeah. So it's I have a program. It's called Ignite Your Feminine Radiance, and it is about dancing through these 12 archetypes. And we do it in a monthly group of women. And again, we really delve into one archetype and really see how she comes to life for us through the month. And we use the energies of the sun and the moon to help activate her, to help give us more understanding and an energetic life force to dance with her. We bring her into our body through movement. We understand her through reflection on how has she shown up in my life. And then, like with anything, when women gather, we share our stories. And we get to see how she's shown up in the woman across from me versus the woman next to me versus me. And we find the gems and the wisdom in our collective experience. And this is online, so it's over Zoom. And it's just a beautiful, beautiful way to dance in a very personal experience and then have the community to share and express and learn from. And so like I said, we go through one archetype a month. And there's embodiment and all sorts of things to really bring her to life. So that's the current program that I offer. And then I work one-on-one with women if they want to go deeper or if there's more that they're wanting to unravel or work through.
And where can people read more about it? The Redhead?
Theredhead.com. And then the program, you'll see a section under offering called Ignite Your Feminine Radiance. And they could watch videos and they could understand. And it's a beautiful program because a lot of it is at your own pace. We do live calls, we do activations, we do, sharing circles, and then everything else is online. So you can, to the extent you want to dive deep into the practices, you can. To the extent you're just coming for the community. And the diversity, I have women from, 24 to 72. Women, and that's what's so beautiful, women who are moguls and real estate moguls to women who are receiving foreclosure notices at the moment and just really in a difficult spot. And when I get to really appreciate and look at all of the diversity of women in our group, it really makes me appreciate how much we as the feminine hold. And you could come in for a month and just see how you experience it and you like it. These archetypes we don't like figure them out. We learn to dance with them and then something in life changes. And the next time I meet her, it's like, okay, wow, she's showing me something new. She's showing me a deeper layer of myself. So we just continue to work through these archetypes and we dance with her and we meet her again.
I love it. I think for me, that's in my second stage, and for any other woman, this opens up a whole world of possibilities for us of life doesn't have to be the way it is or the way it was, and we can create and choose how we want to play. And that's exciting and powerful. Desiree and I are going to do a maybe weekend retreat to play with the archetypes in person and to teach women in their second stage how to play with the archetypes. And so watch the space. We'll share some more information over the next few weeks.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And I would love to just offer your audience, I know we have that coming up. I have a program, but this is also a journey that they can go on just with their own curiosity.
Yes.
That even listening back to this podcast or letting the term sorceress or queen or wise woman, just putting on those titles and seeing where it lands in your body. And then following that, do I have resistance? Do I know that archetype? Does she come to life immediately for me? And really starting to just tune ourselves with our own intuition, with our own knowing. Where are these parts of me? Where are they longing to be more expressed? Or where have I really danced with them beautifully and I could really honor their expression in my life? And that's a way that just through our own solo practice, we could start to give ourselves more range and bring more light to these parts of ourselves.
I love that. Thank you so much. And thanks for joining me today. Thank you.
Love it. Thank you.
Have a nice day.